The night that changed everything began so ordinarily. My sister Rachel had invited me over for Sunday dinner, saying she had a surprise she couldn't wait to share. I showed up with a bottle of wine, expecting maybe a new promotion or a family announcement. I walked into her warm living room, the walls lined with photos of her kids, candles flickering on the table, and there he was. Rachel stood proudly beside her husband, Daniel, the same Daniel I had been secretly seeing for weeks. My breath caught in my throat. The man who had taken me out for late-night coffees, who had kissed my forehead when I was nervous, and who told me I was different from anyone else, was standing there as though he belonged to someone else. And not just anyone. He belonged to my sister. I forced a smile, praying my trembling hands wouldn't give me away. Rachel beamed, completely unaware of the storm raging inside me. "Emma," she said, squeezing his hand tightly, "this is my husband, Daniel." He nodded, his expression unreadable, though for a split second, I caught something flicker in his eyes. Panic, recognition, guilt? Dinner was a blur. I couldn't taste the food on my plate, couldn't follow the conversation about school projects and upcoming holidays. I kept my gaze fixed on my fork, terrified that if I looked up, my eyes would betray me. Daniel kept his performance steady, asking Rachel about her day, laughing at her stories, helping the kids with their plates. He looked like a picture-perfect husband, and that made me sick. How could he sit there so comfortably, knowing what we had shared? Did he ever plan to tell me the truth, or was I just a passing distraction? The questions piled up in my head, louder than the sound of clinking cutlery. My chest tightened as I excused myself to the kitchen, desperate for air. My reflection in the window looked pale, almost unrecognizable. That's when he followed me in. His voice was low, urgent. "Emma, please, don't say anything tonight." My hands shook around the glass I was holding. "Are you kidding me?" I whispered harshly. "You're married. To my sister." He looked down, unable to meet my eyes, but offered no explanation, no apology strong enough to mend the hole he had ripped through my life. I returned to the dining room with a mask fixed on my face. Rachel was laughing, pouring more wine, her eyes glowing with trust and love for the man sitting beside her. And in that moment, I realized the horrifying weight of the secret I now carried. If I told her the truth, I would destroy her marriage, maybe even our bond as sisters. If I stayed silent, I would be living in the shadow of a betrayal that was eating me alive. I barely made it through dessert, my mind spiraling with possibilities. Every smile Daniel gave Rachel felt like a knife. Every laugh Rachel shared felt like a countdown. And all I could think was, if he could lie so effortlessly to her, what else was Daniel hiding from both of us? That night, after Rachel tucked the kids into bed, I cornered Daniel in the kitchen. My voice was shaking, but I couldn't hold it back any longer. "You owe me an explanation," I hissed. He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes darting toward the hallway to make sure Rachel wasn't listening. "I didn't plan this, Emma. I never meant to hurt you. Please, just don't tell her." My stomach twisted. He wasn't denying it, wasn't apologizing in any meaningful way, he was only protecting himself. "So what am I to you? A joke? A mistake?" I demanded. His silence was answer enough. The Daniel who had once made me feel special was gone. In his place stood a liar, a man who had built his life on secrets. I left Rachel's house that night in a daze, the cold air burning my cheeks as I tried to make sense of what had just happened. My phone buzzed with Daniel's texts. "Please, we can talk. I care about you. Don't ruin this." I wanted to throw my phone into the street. The betrayal was unbearable, yet part of me needed to know why he had done it. 4 days, I avoided Rachel's calls. She left cheerful voicemails about wanting to see me, and each one tore me apart. I couldn't face her without choking on the secret. Meanwhile, Daniel's messages grew more desperate, then more manipulative. "If you tell her, you'll destroy your sister's life. Do you really want that on your conscience?" The pressure was crushing me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and every time my phone lit up, I jumped. Then, out of nowhere, everything escalated. Rachel called me from the hospital. Her voice was weak, Raspy. Emma. I collapsed at work. They say it's pneumonia. Can you come? My heart dropped. Within the hour, I was standing in the sterile white corridors of the hospital, the sound of beeping machines and distant voices surrounding me. Rachel lay pale in her bed, an oxygen mask over her face. And there, sitting loyally by her side, was Daniel. He held her hand, stroking it gently, whispering words of comfort. The sight made my skin crawl. To everyone else, he looked like a devoted husband, the picture of love and care. Only I knew the truth, that the same man kissing her forehead had kissed mine just days before. I clenched my fists, rage boiling inside me, but I bit my tongue. Rachel needed support, not chaos. But then, something even darker hit me. If Daniel was capable of lying so perfectly to Rachel, of making her feel safe while betraying her behind her back, how could I be sure I was the only other one? What if there were more women, more secrets, more lives tangled in his lies? As I sat in that hospital room, staring at the man who had shattered both my world and Rachel's without her even knowing, one terrifying thought refused to leave me. What if Daniel's betrayal was far bigger than I could possibly imagine? Hospitals have a strange way of amplifying silence. Every beep of the monitors, every squeak of shoes on the polished floor echoed like a warning in my chest. Rachel was dozing lightly, her hand still in Daniel's, while I sat in the corner pretending to scroll my phone. In reality, I was watching him, studying him, trying to understand how a man could perform love so flawlessly when I knew what he was hiding. Late one evening, as Rachel drifted into deeper sleep, Daniel slipped out into the hallway. I followed, keeping my steps light. He moved with purpose, down past the nurse's station, until he stopped at another room. My stomach clenched as I watched him knock softly before slipping inside. Curiosity and dread collided inside me. Who was in that room? Why was he visiting them? Minutes dragged until he emerged again, adjusting his shirt and checking his phone. He didn't see me pressed against the wall, barely breathing. When he walked away, I stepped closer and glanced through the half-closed door. Inside, a young woman sat propped up in bed, her face pale but her eyes lit up as she scrolled her phone. On the side table sat a vase of fresh flowers with a note I could barely make out. My pulse raced when I leaned closer and caught the scrawled handwriting, "From D." I staggered back. Daniel wasn't just betraying Rachel with me, there was someone else. Another woman, another secret, another life woven into his web of lies. My chest tightened as the truth sank in. I wasn't special. I wasn't even the only one. The realization hit like ice water. Every sweet word he had whispered, every promise he had made, it wasn't unique to me. It was a script, recycled, rehearsed, perfected. How many other women had fallen for the same act? That night, as I sat beside Rachel's hospital bed, I couldn't stop staring at Daniel. He was smiling, adjusting her blanket, whispering gentle reassurances. To Rachel, he looked like a devoted husband. To me, he looked like a predator, skilled at hiding behind kindness. I felt sick holding the secret any longer. But telling Rachel the truth now, while she was fighting to recover, could break her completely. My mind spun in circles, torn between protecting her health and exposing the man who was slowly poisoning every part of our lives. One question burned hotter than all the others, keeping me awake as machines hummed in the background. If Daniel was hiding one more woman, how many more were out there, and how far was he willing to go to keep us all in the dark? The truth could no longer stay buried. Rachel deserved to know, even if it shattered her. One evening, as the machines in her hospital room hummed steadily, I sat at her bedside, my hands trembling. "Rachel, there's something I need to tell you." My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. How I had met Daniel weeks earlier, how I had been seeing him without knowing he was married, how I discovered he was living a double life. At first, she just stared, silent, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then her face drained of color. Slowly, she slipped her wedding ring off her finger and let it fall onto the blanket. The clink of metal against fabric was the loudest sound in the room. She turned her gaze on Daniel, who had gone pale, his mask cracking under the weight of the truth. "You lied to me," she whispered. Her voice was fragile, but her eyes were sharp with rage. Daniel tried to speak, fumbling excuses, but Rachel cut him off. "Get out." Her hand shook as she pointed toward the door. For the first time, I saw fear flash across Daniel's face. He looked at me, as if begging me to intervene, but I stayed silent. He left without another word, the door clicking shut behind him. Rachel broke down in tears, and I held her hand, whispering that she wasn't alone. The betrayal had cut deep, but at least now, the poison was out in the open. In the weeks that followed, Rachel filed for divorce. She moved back in with our parents temporarily, focusing on her recovery and her kids. Our relationship was fragile but healing. We had chosen honesty, even if it hurt. I started therapy, finally untangling myself from the manipulation that had nearly destroyed me. For the first time in months, I could breathe. But just when I thought Daniel was behind us, a new revelation surfaced. A mutual acquaintance reached out, telling me she had seen Daniel living with another woman, someone neither Rachel nor I had ever met. And worse, the timeline overlapped with both of us. The final puzzle piece clicked into place. Daniel hadn't just betrayed me, or Rachel. He had been juggling multiple women at once, constructing entire false lives while smiling to our faces. The scale of his deceit was bigger than I could have imagined. At first, the news stung, reopening old wounds. But then, unexpectedly, it gave me strength. I realized I hadn't been the fool. I had been one of many victims. His betrayal wasn't about my worth. It was about his sickness, his endless hunger for control. Rachel and I sat together one evening, sipping tea in our parents' kitchen. She looked at me with tired but determined eyes. "We'll be fine," she said softly. "He can't take that from us." And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed her. Daniel's lies had torn us apart, but the truth had stitched us back together, stronger, wiser, unshakable. Yet as I lay awake that night, one question lingered like a shadow. If Daniel could deceive us so deeply, how many more lives had he quietly destroyed without anyone ever finding out?